And Formula 1, Formula 3, Formula 2. Yeah, all that stuff have happened. No IndyCar, and in 2 hours and 30 minutes, House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 7 will happen. But okay, here we have it. So yeah, Formula 3. I would say somewhat amazing. Mansell didn't get any points. And fuck do we have? Oh yeah, he got crashed out. Lindblad. Oh yeah, I don't know what happened, but he got. Let's see what happened to him. Whatever happened, he crashed out. I just know that Floersch and Lindblad was in the same place, but they didn't crash out at the same time, I think. Sadly, Beganovic didn't get any points either, so that's somewhat sad. So Luke Browning succeeded to get some points. Let's see, I believe maybe there was the sprint race. There must be sprint race. I don't think a lot of happened. A lot of people, like, stuff happened outside the points more, I believe. But either way, Funaroli and Luke Browning got points, so... Oh yeah, Miney didn't get any points either. So... yeah, Funaroli get past Miney. So last race can be really interesting. And more points for Luke Browning, but he's still behind Miney, so... yeah, the fight between Funaroli and Miney in the last race will be interesting to see. Right, this is the race. Oh, what the fuck happened? Oh yeah, oh no, he's in the last lap. Paul Aaron just see cars just said, no, I don't wanna do this anymore. He would have finished P3, but nope. And oh yeah, let's see. Oliver Behrman was, I don't know what he tried to do in the beginning, but he got too close to Maloney. That made so Oliver Behrman went straight left into Joseph Marti, and he's how as Joseph Marti's season been so unlucky. He's been in so many crashes, and not because he drives bad, but everyone else tries apparently really bad. So these two were out before the first lap, and the first corner. What happened more? I believe, yeah, Victor Martins. Let's see, what happened to him? Someone lost control of the car. I don't know who, but someone lost their car and just went into Victor Martin. So he and Joseph Martin have been so unlucky this season. But yeah, for other people, Antonelli got some points. And Mayata, I mean, that's fun to see get a post. And Maloney crashed out 2 people, didn't still got points. That's something. And yeah, Bortoletto. Nice to see him. P2 almost could maybe try to win the race. Maybe not. But Hadjar won the race and his lead in the standings is now much greater. 169. No, 165 I mean. Here we have the 9. 129 for Bortoletto and Polaron just at 124. His last race have been really bad. Silverstone. Couldn't he even get... I think he was... Let's see. The Silverstone. I believe... let's see, the qualifying. No, so it was the race. So Budapest must be. No, I want to see the fucking qualifying. Yeah, Polaron was in pole, but man, he haven't got any points. So the let's see how many races are then left. I mean, maybe, but this is really bad. If he got maybe more points, maybe. But nice to see Bortoletto with this P2. And here we have... Maybe you can see something that happened in the race, apparently. So Jürgen Yu didn't have a fun race. He got DNF. And... yeah, this race was... It felt like how IndyCar are. You had a lot of pit stops, you had a lot of driving after each other. But only in the end this was real racing. When Lewis Hamilton tried to try something on George Russell, but the whole race was a lot of nothing. It felt like Monaco, but with pit stops. In this race, people said that you could overtake easily. I didn't see any easy overtaking. But then this happened, so the end of this race was less fun. So Daniel Ricciardo, I mean, he got into points thanks to that. Esteban Ogone gets 2 points instead. Then Sir Perez, I mean, the fair return never happened. He qualified P3, started P2, and the car was not for driving in the dry. Maybe if it was rain he could have maybe won the race, but nope. It was dry and Red Bull was really bad. Max Verstappen couldn't do anything either. I mean, he did better than Perez. That are somewhat depressing, but Max Verstappen P4 from P11 and Sir Perez from P3/P2 to P7. Yeah, George Russell won the race, but the news say he got disqualified, so Lewis Hamilton got the win. So Charles Leclerc podium, that's, I mean, something to celebrate. But I don't know, what the fuck did McLaren do? Or even what did Lando Norris do in the start? He just let the car out and then lost position, and man, this race was... It felt like one more race when McLaren just... You have the car to win, but let's fuck the race up. Just because reasons. Like, so how many points did Lando Norris lose now? I mean, if he could have got 25. He lost 15 points. And even more sad, Max Verstappen got more points than Lando Norris this race. Oh my god. So yeah, so let's start the fish collecting, and then we can see what, and then we can start reacting to other people's reaction. 2009, 2700. And then we start. What I've read, that Toto Wolff went out and said sorry or something. And let's see if I can actually find that. No, I want latest. Yeah, Wolff apologized to Russell after Mercedes' mistake leads to Belgian Grand Prix disqualification. Russell qualified from Belgian Grand Prix underweight car as Hamilton is promoted to winner. Yeah, it was like, man, how many teams did fail this race? Like, why? Man, a lot of nothing happened, and then it's ended with more or less nothing, because everything that it didn't mean anything. So yeah, man, so lame. Let's see if we can get the first fish for today. And let's see what people think about Sir Perez. Will he keep his seat or not? I mean, if he got podium or 100% a race win, I felt like he could have stayed. They could maybe go out and say, yeah, he will 100% stay now. But now after this, it's like, really? Will he really stay? Maybe less harder to maybe keep him. But then if I don't see Liam Lawson get a promotion. I feel like just put Liam Lawson in Visa Cash Up RB Formula 1 team, and then you just put Ricciardo in he scored some points, so you can maybe celebrate that. Let's see. He finished P10. So he got some points. Red Gray. No, I have not picked any fish up, I believe. Or did I? Well, at least this one we can say is the first fish for the collection. Flopper Magneta Cyan. Or we have Blockfish Red Gray. I don't know. But let's see. What do the people think? I mean, Autosport, I believe they will start with the overweight stuff about Mercedes. Let's see.
So, Belgian Grand Prix is done. Absolute barnstorm of a race. Absolutely fantastic. And
no, it wasn't.
A bit of an interesting evening, basically. So, you know, a great race. George Russell had led home and Mercedes 1-2. Normally, when that happens, we get Mercedes boss Toto Wolff. Normally, straight after the race, if it's a podium, it delays, it gets a bit delayed. But today it dragged on and on and on. And eventually some whispers in the media huddle there saying, oh, he's underweight, he's underweight. Then it all kind of unfolded from there. And confirmation, George Russell's car was found to be underweight. It's a kind of non-negotiable situation for a team. You're underweight, you're out. End of story.
Nice.
Phil, what did you kind of make of the situation, and what do you think
Oh my god.
triggered it? What are the theories?
Like, I wonder how did they fuck that up? Like, how?
It's hard to say because these are Formula One teams.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to have a car that's a kilo and a half in a weight. They know what they're doing. They're much smarter than we are. So it's not something that you see very often, but we do have a few factors maybe that could lean into it. A one-stop race for Russell, which was not really what people had in mind. It was very much a surprise that people were able to pull that off. And then here in Spa, you have this it's the longest circuit on the calendar, so you have this weird thing where they're not doing an outlap. So they're not going all the way around, they're coming straight back into the pits in the opposite direction. So that means they don't get 7 kilometers to pick up all sorts of rubble and pick up to bump up the weight a little bit.
Yeah, it's a strange one. We spoke to, Toto didn't really have an answer tonight. The team knows they've made a mistake. They can't appeal it. There'll be an analysis, whether it was the tyre factor, and we're only talking, it's 1.5 kilos. So you're talking 400 grams per tyre. It's a tiny, tiny amount. So I'm sure there'll be some deep digging into why it was. But equally, Russell wasn't the only person who did the one stop today. Other cars did a similar, not identical stint length, and didn't get disqualified. So I'm sure it's something, answers that'll come out afterwards. But irrespective of the disappointment for Mercedes, they still won. It would have been a 1-2. Now it's just a 1, basically for Lewis Hamilton. Quite remarkable, especially because on Friday the team was in so much trouble.
So lame. Like, what the fuck did Mercedes do? McLaren. Stop wasting wins. Max Verstappen is out of the picture. What? Take the wins.
Pace-wise, it wasn't there. I remember standing at the back of the Mercedes garage straight after FP2, and they came out. You could tell from the body language of George and Lewis as they went up the steps to engineering. They looked very downbeat and depressed. And Toto Wolff went up the steps and kind of looked at me, shaking his head. So it was clearly something was on. Overnight engineering work. They basically took off a new floor they brought here because they weren't convinced by it. They made some mechanical changes to the car, kind of take it back to how it was at Silverstone, and that unlocked it and transformed it. And also a bit of an eye-opener for McLaren. McLaren's been the quickest car for quite a while, but today it kind of spiraled out of control. For Norris in particular, having started, right up there, many places ahead of Maax, you'd have expected to come in front, but it all went wrong on turn 1, really, Phil.
Yeah, turn 1.
You spoke to Lando afterwards. A, what happened? B, what was his reaction?
Well, A, what happened, I feel like he sort of overcompensated for a crash that wasn't going to happen because it's a classic turn 1 Spa. It's often 3 cars side by side going through. So you very easily get shoved out wide or get hit from somebody lunging out the inside. We've seen that several times.
What is this? No, we want to say that for fun. Fucking weird. Yeah, that happened. God damn it. One more ad. Just because I watched the first one.
I think he maybe sort of over-adjusted for Piastri, who was coming up on the inside, but there was still plenty of room for Piastri to go to. So maybe, he admitted afterwards as well, he just miscalculated it, went wide when he really shouldn't have. And we got classic Lando being very self-critical, saying, I've made too many mistakes, it's not clicking for me. And there was an interesting observation, because I put that to Andrea Stella as well afterwards, and he kind of admitted that, there seems to be a tendency of Lando making more and more mistakes sort of towards the start of the race, and that's something that they're going to have to analyze.
Yeah, I think we had breakfast with Zach Brown this morning and made reference to the fact I know Lando wasn't on pole today, but I think 5 pole positions he's had and 5 times he's not led after the first lap. So I think there's some deep diving to go there. But equally, Gasly did make a strong start. He was challenging there, and if but for a few seconds, could have come away with a win today. But it went wrong at the final pit stop. You spoke to Oscar.
Oh, so lame. Could that maybe have made him win the race? Because he maybe got past Lewis Hamilton and then... Oh, lame.
What was his reaction?
It's just one of the things. Yeah, you're on warm tires. You're trying to stop at the very last time at the pit stop. You just overshot it a tiny bit, and it wasn't a major error, but it does cost you 2 seconds, and that 2 seconds means that even if it didn't cost him a position, it was still costing him the chance to go attack Russell. Yeah. It's 2 seconds of tire life that you need to get out of the tires to close the gap to overtake. It's all the small things McLaren have been doing. It just snowballs out of control very quickly. So you have to be at absolute max to win races in F1 now.
Yeah, I think it's another race weekend where, and this was put to Andrea Stella tonight. Phil and I spoke to him, where another perhaps missed opportunity that it could have been so different for the team. They could have had the pace to be challenging for the win, a double podium. We don't know, but it didn't happen. But equally, I think Andrea Stella was right that a lot of people went into this race today thinking that Max Verstappen is going to come charging through. That Red Bull was mighty quick yesterday. I know weather conditions were different, but it looked to be the fastest car here. This is a perfect stomping ground track for it. Very good aero efficiency, brilliant DRS things. This is the perfect track for them. So I think today there's a lot of head scratching. Christian Horner tonight said it was bizarre how the things had turned around. They weren't quite sure what the situation was. And it's an interesting dynamic now because we've got a cost cap in Formula that's all equal, but equally we've got some aero testing restrictions that weight things. And at the moment, you could argue the 2 quickest teams are Mercedes and McLaren, and they're the 2 teams that are going to have the most wind tunnel development time because they were 3rd and 4th in the Constructors' Championship at the break. So you spoke to Andrea. He was quite upbeat about it all, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, he tried not to be too upbeat, but he couldn't really hide it too well. It's sort of a double whammy of coming into the season, having more development time, and then right before the break, when the next cutoff is for the second period of the ATR, as it's called, they're still behind. So they still have that extra bonus development time. And that's going to be a great help because they can choose where to invest it in 2025, 2024. They can maybe do both a bit more than Red Bull could do.
Checo Perez was very, very disappointed tonight. Qualified second, should have been up there running. I think Helmut Marko, quite outspoken after the race, said Perez's pace collapsed. He slumped down. Christian Horner wasn't very kind of upbeat about things, so it wasn't great from Checo. There's a meeting tomorrow, we understand, at
Yeah, wonder what this meeting will lead to. I feel like most likely Perez will maybe... Could he really stay more? I don't think so. He did do good qualifying, said that the car was so not good, so the race really looked bad for him.
HQ and Milton Keynes to discuss what they do for both rest of this season and 25 regarding drivers. Checo Perez is going to be on the agenda. Daniel Ricciardo's fate will be on the agenda. Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda. So there's a lot to decide tomorrow. It seems to be he's not done enough. You get the impression, speaking to Christian, what was Checo's mood like at the end of it?
Yeah, it looked...
It can't be good. It's like you have the greatest opportunity to maybe win a race, and then just everything falls apart. It's like you can't even... that must be so depressing.
Pretty much fed up.
Yes.
He pronounced he was not going to answer any more questions about the future, which I can understand because there's been a lot of that. But didn't look great. Also tried to find excuses. It's the tires, it's the strategy. We didn't get the straight line speed we needed. There's sort of you know, he was looking for reasons, but it wasn't really finding one particular reason why he's had this collapse, as Helmut Marko called it. It's sort of, I don't know if it's the tires or this or that. Didn't really seem to look at himself too much, but it's a tricky situation because, as you say, you needed Hungary and Spa here to be good, and they weren't good enough. Daniel Ricciardo, was he that mega? Maybe not. He was obviously not helped by the team strategy last week. Good race today, given the car that he's had, just missed out on the point. It's one of those, yeah, there's no clear cut.
Well, he didn't, because George Russell made him get one position better.
Yes, he's out, or yes, he's in. It's sort of, I don't know, it's like a 50-50 or 60-40 decision. So I'm really interested to see what
100%
Helmut
pink.
Marko and especially Christian Horner are going to
100%
do
pink
tomorrow.
snooper.
I think the final person worth talking about today is Charles Leclerc. Obviously started pole position, led early on. Lewis Hamilton came past him. So for a while, it looked like Ferrari got on top of their problems. The high-speed bouncing wasn't a massive issue. And then he faded as well. What was his reaction? He was a bit upset, wasn't he, afterwards?
Yeah, he was very upset actually for somebody that finished fourth and then turned out to be third. I think especially because Mercedes were a 1-2. We were talking about McLaren versus Red Bull, or McLaren versus Max, maybe more accurately. Then Mercedes has that 1-2, and it looks like Ferrari was sort of the fourth quickest car on pure pace.
Yeah.
So what I think happened is he overperformed a bit on qualifying, put it on the front row, well, became a pole position. So in a way, he probably was a bit quicker than we thought. But then in the dry, yeah, they're still lacking pace. It was okay at the start, but then as the fuel load goes down
Trident.
and they go faster through the corners, that high-speed bouncing issue came back. So they still haven't solved it. And yeah, it doesn't look like they can keep up with the three teams around them.
Nope.
So that's it. Pack down, as you can see, is going on behind us. We've just popped out the paddock because it's complete chaos in there and everyone's in a rush to get away on their summer holidays. So we'll be back to
And we got the
Zandvoort.
Trident.
Still got some bit more work to do tonight. And we'll
Nice.
find out maybe then if Red Bull have got an
I got more Tridents than Salman. This is weird. Is it this one? Yeah, this one. Man, look, I've got 6 Tridents. I've got not a single Salmon. I mean, like this I got before, but here I have a lot of buckets. They're empty with water. No salmon. Only Tridents to look at. So unlucky.
a new driver or not?
Man, that's happened. That race, man, so... How can stuff happen like that? Yeah, let's see, P1, like, have you any explanation to what the fuck happened?
And welcome back to the B1 podcast with Matt and Tommy. Yes, Tommy's back. He's here.
No.
And he's got some thoughts, as do I.
Oh shit. Take away Matt, eller Tom. Bring back the other Tom. He was so much better. Hashtag bring back the second Tom.
This video is sponsored by the Formula One exhibition.
Fuck. I don't care. Go away.
Available now on f1exhibition.com.
Go now. Tale of not two halves, but a tale of 90% and 10%, I would say, that we need to talk about. But before we dive into that, before we get the how are yous out the way, Tommy, first and foremost, we have a live show tour starting in Canada.
Oh my god, fuck me, one more ad. Go fuck yourself. Oh shit, delete that.
We're going to throw something in. 24 was like what looked like a stinker of a race. It is, and
Because my word,
I can't remember off the top of my head. And you want to check where they are, because go to the US of A. Tickets are on sale.
Okay.
New York is sold out. The others are going. So if you want to come and see me and Tommy live in the flesh,
No, what?
and you want to check
I
where
really
they are,
don't.
because unless you've got the list right there, Tommy, I can't remember off the top of my head. You need to come see the P1 live show, because you will not be disappointed, I promise.
You will.
it's going to be good.
100%.
Can't wait for it. And
well, it will
exciting
not be
times.
good.
We're going to have a hell of a lot to talk about because my word is this season delivering.
It certainly is, and even
Sure you will.
what looked like a stinker of a race, F1 2024 was like, nah,
We're not allowed to be bad.
we're going to throw something in. And I'm also just trying to extend the length of me talking so I can say that it's Toronto, New York, Chicago, Seattle.
Okay, fuck that.
Or is.
Right, my most memorable moment. Let's start right there.
George Russell get disqualified.
The George Russell strategic masterclass. I am
Until
in awe
not.
of what George Russell has just produced. I don't think anybody saw that coming. Even Mercedes themselves, perhaps, didn't see just how much George was about to chef up the entire grid and secure a victory. I can't. My brain
Until it wasn't a victory.
couldn't comprehend first and foremost that Lewis Hamilton was winning most of that Grand Prix because Mercedes looked terrible on Friday, and they didn't look like they had a huge amount of pace just in general over the course of the weekend. But then, of course, Hamilton got Leclerc at the beginning, which I don't want to talk about, and it looked like Hamilton was on for a victory. But then Russell said, no, I shall not stop again because no one can overtake. And my God, did it pay off.
It sure did.
Until
it was a
it
very
didn't.
clever strategy, one that we'll get into, but very surprised no other drivers
Until it didn't.
decided to do such a risk because, like you say, it was turning into one of those races where it was so difficult to pass. So, George, it was a brilliant performance because I think Hamilton didn't see it coming at all. And when Russell had that team radio and said, I want to go for the whole race here, the crazy thing was, I was looking at the order going, he could get P3 here, he could be on the podium. Never mind win the actual Grand Prix. So, amazing stuff.
Until
and
it
again,
didn't.
The race just delivered right at the end when we thought it was going to be
No.
pretty abysmal.
The future will say no. It wasn't a delivery. It was just a boring race.
Because it was so hard to pass. It was crazy, but we'll get into that later.
We certainly will. First question comes in from P1 Patreon member AMG Piper. How underrated has George Russell been this season? Surely this win means he deserves more respect. Now, I've said it time and time again. I've said it when we were on the main stage at Silverstone that George Russell deserves some more respect on his name. I don't know why it is. I still don't understand why George is not being celebrated for just how well he's doing up against Hamilton. And I think it's obviously because of certain stories that have circulated around George being favoured and this, that and the other. But we're looking solely at what George Russell has done this season.
Probably Lewis Hamilton fans.
He has been phenomenal. Absolutely, hands down, one of the best drivers this season. And to snatch a victory out of the palms of Lewis Hamilton, I think if Mercedes had genuinely thought that George Russell could win the race had he one-stopped, they may well have just delayed it or something, or done something to try and... Because I know how this looks, and I'm sure if you're a Lewis Hamilton fan, you are shocked, if anything, that his own teammate has beaten him with a strategy. And what I will say on this is that I do not believe in the slightest that Mercedes have tried to orchestrate a George Russell victory here. I mean, they said themselves, and if you want to take it with a pinch of salt, fine. But I think they said they predicted or forecasted 5th place with the 1 or the 2 stop strategy. And George has ended up winning. So George has just driven so well with those tyres. He went, over 30 laps on those hard tyres. And not only that, but he kept them in great condition for at least the traction zones, which allowed for him to defend against Hamilton. And I do not think, because I know how...
Yes. Until they started to look at his car, then he couldn't defend anymore.
This looks. This doesn't look great on Mercedes in some ways if you're focusing on Hamilton. But they're trying to extract the most out of George's race. And George, the driver, has said, look, let me one-stop this. I think I can go to the end and get a good result. I don't think George expected to win. Mercedes didn't expect him to win. And you just have to class this as a brilliant drive. One more lap and George probably finishes 3rd. This was not orchestrated.
No, it wasn't.
But his disqualified stuff is maybe.
In terms of the question, underrated, I definitely agree with that. I won't go to the
Oh my god, how much more will they talk about George Russell? Because
extreme
man,
and say I think he's been one of
future
the
would
best
tell
drivers of
another
the
story.
year, but he has done a very good job, and he's now the only driver other than Max Verstappen to get more
was.
than one victory.
Not
So
anymore.
impressive there from George. But what I will say is that in this silly season, he must be. He's done a very good job alongside Lewis Hamilton since he's been there, and is doing it again this year. They're very close on points. There's only 2 points in it, and of course, you know, we all know how good Lewis Hamilton is. And for George Russell, he must be like, hang on a minute, my boss is constantly in the press talking about how they're desperate for Max Verstappen, how they're desperate for 17-year-old Kimi Antonelli. We need to get the next Max Verstappen in. And while I don't think Russell is on the level of Max Verstappen, he is a very, very capable driver. And today, and he has done this before, shown that he is capable to lead that team and do a very good job, and is a very quick
Yeah, he can, not the team.
driver, because he was so lauded when he was doing unbelievable things for Williams. He's been given that chance, and he's done a very good job at Mercedes. So I think it must be disheartening for him to basically constantly hear about, oh, who are Mercedes going to have, and they need to get a really good driver in because Hamilton's gone. Because the whole point of him going there in the first place, and actually them getting rid of Bottas and taking that risk, was that it was meant to be George Russell takes over the mantle. And he's doing that. And he did it again today with a brilliant strategy.
He's capable. I think that is absolutely the feeling that you should get when you think about George Russell leading a team. But look, they've got their sights set on Kimi Antonelli. So,
And rightly so. I will just.
Oh, I mean, you're such a fanboy. It's crazy. Oh, he went near the wall. Oh, I love him. He's so dainty.
Well, he's definitely shown that he's got it, and I think I am very
That I would say more than Oliver Behrman have done in Formula 2.
certain that they're going to go for him now alongside Russell, and they just take that risk of who might make. He will have moments. He will crash. He'll have moments like Max Verstappen where he has these things, but it's all about a learning phase, and they'll have two very quick drivers. So
I love it. So 3 races ago, not proved himself. Now he's had a sprint win and a feature race win. He's done it. This is it.
Well, he's absolutely he's owning Behrman, it has to be said, in the championship. He's got an F1 drive, and Antonelli is the rookie here. So I don't think it is just a case of the most recent races. We said it before, even if you take the wins out the way, that he is comparable to Behrman. But just to go back to Hamilton, actually, because I didn't sort of go into that after you mentioned about the certain fan base being like, oh, how dare they undercut their own driver? But you look at it from overcut, yeah. You look at that from a team point of view, and they turned a 1-4, a 1-5, whatever it was going to be, into a 1-2. And yes, Hamilton has been disappointed. And I don't think Hamilton is unlucky, because he can say all he wants about the fact that his tyres, he could go longer. But if Mercedes left Hamilton out when he's leading the Grand Prix in the best position, unfortunately, and we've seen this time and time again, is that when you're leading, you do have to do the safe strategy. Look what Oscar Piastri did in Silverstone. I know it's wet conditions, it's a little bit different, but he didn't do the double stack, did he? And we were all laughing at McLaren saying, you're absolutely ridiculous, make the safe call. And equally, if Hamilton could quite easily, it's all hindsight, but Hamilton, they quite easily could have left him out for ages, shreds his tyres or gets a puncture. I don't think he would have, but you play that safe call because Hamilton was in a brilliant position to win the race and was going to win the race. The only guy, the only people that could have denied him was someone trying a one-stop and it being very hard to pass, and that is exactly what happened.
Yeah, and of course, look, I understand if you are incredibly passionate about Lewis Hamilton and then you hear him say after the race, oh, I had plenty of tyres left, just the team brought me in. Of course, it's going to fuel a bit of like, we could have done exactly the same as George Russell, but it was a roll of the dice with George. The whole thing was a predicted 2-stop. That was the what everybody went for pretty much, apart from Russell, Alonso, and then Magnussen and Tsunoda. Those were the only drivers to do a 1-stop. Perez did a 3-stop, because of course he stopped at the end for soft tyres, but we'll get on to him at some point. But it was a roll of the dice. It was by no means the strategy going into this.
And you can do that when you're not leading. To roll the dice when you're leading is stupid. You don't roll the dice when you're leading the Grand Prix comfortably.
You cover everyone behind you, which is what Hamilton did and the team did, which was the right decision.
At the end of the day, Russell has taken a massive gamble, and in hindsight, you go, that was the right strategy. But no one else did it, apart from Alonso. But he's not in Formula A and fighting for in that pack. So it's easy to go, oh, why didn't they do that? But if they had done it and it had gone wrong, it would be, oh, they've sabotaged Lewis Hamilton. Oh, how dare they? Because you don't do that when you're the leading driver. When, in a weird way, sometimes when you're behind, or I guess he was ahead, but it's because he's off a different strategy. But you know what I mean? You're out the race. You can just roll the dice and do something different. Yeah. And 9 times out of 10 it doesn't work, but today it did work. And
it worked beautifully.
Until it didn't.
I think that, from my perspective,
come on,
it just needs to be highlighted that George did an amazing job here. It's not that it was a flat-out strategy that could have worked. It didn't seem to be it. So well done to George.
One more thing.
Oh, the fingers up and everything. This has to be a big point. And also, actually, I've got something that you need to say to everyone as well. But go on, what's your one more thing?
My one more thing is actually maybe Team LH don't listen to this. But what I would say is, I would say that Hamilton had one opportunity and he didn't take it because he got a great run. And unfortunately for Hamilton, he probably thought that he'd get another opportunity because it was quite early on. He got that incredible run, but we can't take anything away from George Russell. It looked like he was going wide, and we're going, oh, he's gone wide. But no, it was a really clever line that he took to get an amazing slingshot down the main straight and made sure that Hamilton would never get a run like that again. So it was just great driving. So well done, George.
Yeah, he absolutely nailed it for sure. Do you want to...
Until the finish line happened, then I saw the car.
Say your apology now, or just...
No, later when we get to the predictions.
Okay, fine. We'll wait to predictions.
I know you're desperate for it.
I know. I mean, you baited me. Right. Next question is from P1 Patreon member Harvey Walker. Why are McLaren so scared to make difficult and different decisions? If Oscar and Lando did a 1-stop, either of them could have won. Look, I am obviously of the opinion now, with the beauty of hindsight, that McLaren could have and maybe should have done something different. Let's not forget as well that McLaren is a different car to Mercedes. Just because the Mercedes was able to do a 1-stop strategy is not an absolute stone cold set in motion that every other team could have done it as well.
They might be really good on their tyres, yeah.
Yeah, but that being said, I am very surprised that they didn't do something different with Lando Norris, because they got the offset, which is what they decided to do, to try and gain some positions in this train of cars where they couldn't make any progress. But also, once they got the offset, and then he caught up to the back of them, he couldn't make any progress. He then pit back onto the same strategy of everyone else. So they lost the advantage, didn't commit to what could have been a 1-stop, maybe, but they didn't. And then they just got stuck. And if anything, it didn't work at all. And then with Oscar, I'm not going to slander his strategy too much, because I think he actually made it work to a degree. And I think maybe with one more lap, it could have been the battle of the century for first, second and third place. So Oscar was very much in the mix, so I'm not going to slander that too much. But McLaren were incredibly conservative with Lando, and it does just look... for me, it just looks like they're going, oh, Red Bull are having a bad day, constructors' points, let's get points, not Drivers' Championship, Lando needs something here.
Yeah, and ironically, well, maybe we'll talk about the Drivers' Championship later, but...
Max Verstappen get more points than Lando Norris.
With the Constructors' Championship, they're very much there, and they kind of
100%
covered
green flopper.
Verstappen the whole way with Lando when he had decent pace. Has to be said that Lando messed up big time at the start. That was his error. Another error is it's all right to go, oh, McLaren, why McLaren? But at the end of the day, Lando has driven into the gravel on lap 1 and very lucky to not lose even more positions than he did, because that costs you all the way up the straight, and he's very lucky that a couple of the Formula B cars didn't pass him as well. But when it got to that point where we saw how difficult it was to pass, Lando was going to finish 6th or 7th if he'd have just done what he did, and that's exactly what he did. But roll the dice like a George Russell, and you finish 6th or 7th, or you finish 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, something like that. So this is what we said with George Russell, because he did, in a weird way, badly, but was down the order. That's when you can take a risk. You're safe with Lando when he's leading, and ironically.
So another win where McLaren failed. They failed the drivers again.
We've all been complaining that McLaren didn't do the safe option at Silverstone and things like that. But yeah, it's just another thing. Why didn't they roll the dice there? It's very, very bizarre.
Yeah, I would be a lot more frustrated if I was a Lando fan than an Oscar fan. Oscar drove.
Oscar, there was no way they're ever going to do it with Oscar. It was the same as Hamilton. No. Oscar's race. Oscar could have maybe won that race if he'd got past Leclerc quicker. I think that he had that one chance, didn't he?
No, Charles, one of the greatest defenders of all time. So Oscar came up with a big battle there. But no, I agree. I think that it's just lacking a little bit of something from McLaren, and the only word that comes to mind is conservative. And I think conservative might win you the constructors, but you sure as hell aren't going to catch Max in the drivers. How has Max extended his lead? He started 11th, and by lap 2 he was behind Lando. Now that was Lando's driver error, and you can tell once again in the post-race interviews Lando was feeling quite sorry for himself, I think. And I think this summer break couldn't come at a better time for him. I think he just needs to reset, because it's clear that he beats himself up about this, and it's not like he can just blame McLaren's strategy for the 6th place. Had he not run wide, he may well have been in Oscar's situation and been right there fighting for the win at the end. But alas, it's ifs again, and it's a 6th place, and it's just really disappointing.
Yeah, he's a long way off Max in the fact that he's not made any inroads on the championship. It's a massive ask now, and yeah, I know it's never say never, but the thing I look at it now is going that I look at it and think that gap should not be 78 points anyway. No way should Max be 78 points clear going into this stage. McLaren should be leading the Constructors' Championship. You could argue, I don't think it's unfair to say McLaren should be leading the Constructors' Championship by 20, 30 points.
Yeah.
And the gap between Lando and Max, realistically, should be maybe 30, 40, something like that, 50 points maybe, if we're maybe being a bit more realistic. It should not be nearly 80 points, because they have had an incredibly good car for so long now, and again, have only won one race. You look at Lando's results since China, when you can argue that he may have had maybe McLaren was becoming, if not the best car, and has been pretty much since then, or at least level with Max. He's not really taken chunks out of the lead. He's won one race, but he's been 5th, 6th in a sprint, quite a few seconds, the DNF, 3rd, 2nd, and then again, you must get to the end of that race and be like, how on earth have I finished behind Max this weekend? The guy started 11th, and the Red Bull had no pace, which I'm going to get onto later. It's kind of inexcusable, really.
It is, and I think what's even more damning, right, is you look at the period of time that McLaren have had a good car.
I mean, this is so depressing. The fuck is McLaren doing? They could have won so much, and they have not done it. Like they're wasting so many points for nothing.
You look at the period of time that Mercedes have had a good car, and how many victories have they been able to rack up in that tiny amount of time compared to McLaren that have had it near on, maybe 2/3 of what we've had of this season. Mercedes have 3
Mercedes
wins.
have won 3 of the last 4, have they not?
Yeah, 3 of the last 4.
That is insane.
Mercedes have won.
When they are 4th in the constructors, and we were calling them wash before that, and they got a decent car, and they've delivered 3 victories in 4. And McLaren, have had this unbelievable car for so long now, and they're not picking up anywhere near the points that they should be. Nowhere near.
And someone on Twitch, when we were live streaming for the race watch along, said that this is basically 2022 Ferrari, and I think we both agree that it's actually worse.
It's probably getting worse now.
To the stage of, because it's such a strange narrative, isn't it? Where I think Ferrari were criticised beyond belief for how they were not able to fight in 2022 and not capitalising. But I don't know. It almost feels like McLaren are praised for closing the gap to Red Bull and treated like underdogs.
And I think all of that comes down to the fact that Ferrari, and this may sound insane to say because McLaren do have that prestige, but McLaren have been in the midfield for a long time. So the fact that they've now got into Formula A and can challenge for victories and arguably have the best car in Formula One right now, you're kind of applauding them for that, but they're not having these moments where they're winning the race by an absolute country mile and then doing, sorry to bring it up, but hard tyres or having a pit stop blunder or all those, flashbacks that you'll have to 2022. Ferrari had high profile errors that cost them, and that I think that made it worse because it was more like memeable, whereas McLaren, you've not had those moments where you've just kind of gone, what on earth are you doing? It's just kind of, it's just, well, yeah, apart from that, but it has just kind of got away from them a bit rather than it being like completely, oh my God, you're like, being a clown show here. And that's what it's come down to. They are actually.
You get like hard and short mistakes that have big consequences. While McLaren is like, you can't see the mistake in the first place, and then 30 minutes later you maybe see it. It's like a slow mistake McLaren does. So it's like nobody can actually point out what the fuck they did wrong. After the race you can point everything out, but then nobody saw it. I mean, like, if you do a bad pit stop or change to bad tires, you can 100% see it. That you went into the pit stop for new tires, it's like, is that a mistake? I mean, if you need new tires, you need them. Can that really be a mistake? And that maybe now shown it was.
Like they're underdogs and they finished behind Maax again.
Unbelievable.
3rd and 6th is not where. The question in the pod, wasn't it, was are McLaren going to fumble this 1-2 again? They finished 3rd and 6th when Max Verstappen qualified 11th, and yes, not good.
Yeah, I think McLaren, we can't say they were the out-and-out fastest car today. If we're trying to be sort of devil's advocate here and kind of give a little bit... It's very difficult to overtake around here. So there were elements there that did halt their progress, but they didn't make things easy for themselves, I think is fair.
No, it's not... I think this is more like...
Trident.
It's not on this particular race. It's just as we reflect going into the summer break that they should have... at the very least, another 50 points, if not more, in the Constructors' Championship, and Lando a lot more in the Drivers as well.
Absolutely. Sorry, McLaren fans. I know that you aren't enjoying probably these segments, but they have to be spoken about. Now, Tommy, let's go to your most memorable moment.
Not Trident.
My most memorable moment
Perez.
was actually Red Bull, and it's not a good one. and unfortunately it's going to come back to a bit of McLaren chat, and it's Red Bull's lack of pace, because Spa has been the track that the Red Bull has been mighty round. Even when Sergio Perez last year was having his difficult stage, he still did a great job around Spa and could deliver a great result. Max Verstappen, didn't matter if he was 12th, 13th, 14th.
I mean, that was somewhat depressing, but also amazing. Like how far Max Verstappen can just start a race and just win. But man, when Sergio Perez is leading the race, then you really don't want Max Verstappen to catch up and overtake and actually extend his lead to Perez and then wins. But yeah.
Wherever he started, he got past everyone and was there in about 10 laps. And we're now on a run of form where Max hasn't won in 4 races, which...
Yeah, that's... Man. And this could maybe been the day when either Max Verstappen and Perez won a race. And nothing happened. He said Mercedes from nowhere just wins it.
May sound absolutely, oh my god, every other driver would be going, oh, you know, I'd love it if that was the absolute disaster form for me as well. But he's also, you know, 3 races out of 4 without a podium. They're struggling for pace. Max is...
Oh shit, is that true? Let's see. Podiums. No, Scudder. Let's see. Oh, actually true. He didn't get. He got a podium in Great Britain. No podiums in Belgium or Hungary. No podium in Austria. Man, he had some great win streak. 1, 2. Then we have 4. Then we have 2. Then we have nothing. Also, could maybe been a 1 more win for him.
Delivering somehow, like it's helping Red Bull that other cars are taking points off each other. But what I will say is they are
helping.
Very, very, very likely, I think, going to lose a Constructors' Championship now, because they don't look there or thereabouts, and that's not just Sergio Perez, who we'll talk about in a bit. It's also that the car doesn't have enough pace for Max Verstappen to win the Constructors' Championship on his own like he did last year.
This I would believe. After the summer, Red Bull will be back, and McLaren, they have lost their chances to win races, because now it's between McLaren and Mercedes.
At the moment, anyway, and they've come up with some very outrageous...
But I believe McLaren will still be faster than Mercedes, but they will find a way to still not win the race when it's between Red Bull and Mercedes.
Upgrades, haven't they, to try and make the car quicker, and nothing's really seemed to work, which I think we all expected, including them, Lando before the race and things like that, saying that they were nervous about Verstappen coming through. And I mean, on paper, Spa looks like the greatest track ever to overtake on, but it just really wasn't. And even Max got stuck, and that was quite surprising to see. Question: Mega versus Primus. Does this race solidify that Red Bull are at risk of losing the Constructors' title? What can be done to prevent this? Okay,
make a
here
better
we go.
car.
I know Red Bull will be listening because they are frantically trying to figure out the solutions.
Come on.
1, build a faster car. Okay,
Oh, that's
so
bold.
that's what I would say. Red Bull is... It's a bit weird, isn't it, that Adrian Newey's bouncing and now all of a sudden things are not going great at Red Bull. But 2.
I mean, sure, but that's the most coincidence ever. It's like when after he starts the talk about the leaving, now the car is going to be bad.
Get a better second driver, because Perez, we will get on to him,
Daniel Ricciardo,
but my goodness
probably.
me, how have you finished 8th when starting on the front row of the grid? And 3, Tommy. You need Tommy. Tommy is got so much wheel knowledge.
He doesn't.
That he
Fuck
would have
him.
sussed out that one-stop strategy 2 laps in, to be honest with you.
I was surprised. Yeah, I was surprised Red Bull didn't go for it. They made some odd strategy calls as well with Perez and Verstappen. We didn't hear the ranting of Maax with this strategy, which we'll talk about. What could I be talking about there? Although, what do they need to do? In a weird way, they need exactly what's happening and Formula A to be very close and they'll start taking points off each other, which is exactly what's happening because McLaren should be leading the Constructors' Championship, but Mercedes will occasionally be like, oh, thank you very much. And then Ferrari will be like, let's win Monaco. And then that would be terrible.
Ferrari will be like, we'll be quick for one race.
Well, they were really good. I mean, the conversation was that Ferrari were going to be the ones to challenge for the Constructors.
Yeah.
They dropped off. McLaren, McLaren will definitely do it. Now Mercedes are taking points off them, and that is helping Red
True.
Bull at the moment.
Oh my god, alltså like first Ferrari, then it just goes away. McLaren like, we can do it. And they just fail it miserably. Yeah, whatever that's word it is. And then you have Mercedes. It will now take the torch. And now it's maybe too late.
But it can't go on. It can't go on like this because they are losing ground rapidly. You look at the results since, and we forgot about this because we were talking about 1-2 finishes, and it feels like a lifetime ago that they actually got a 1-2 in 3 of the first 4 races, then got a 1-3. But you look at the recent form, and yeah, they're not, they're not bagging 20 points, sometimes way less than that each race because Perez is nowhere, and even now Maax is finishing races in 5th, 2nd, 5th, 5th. They are losing ground rapidly. And
that I believe they will do. Try to fix any problem with the car. They will probably keep Perez because he's been driving the car. Yeah, I mean, most of all the people they have. And see if after the summer break, if the cars, if the car shows now is good but Perez is bad, then you just remove Perez. But I believe that he will stay. He will stay until the next races comes. Then he will probably be removed. I mean, it will be weird to try to fix the car and also remove one of the drivers before you know if the car have actually improved or will do anything as the driver wants it to do.
there's still a hell of a lot of races to go. So it is 100% game on in the championship.
It really is.
It should be,
It's
but
actually
isn't.
so finely put. I know that I don't think many people actually get very excited about the Constructors' Championship, but it might be the only thing we have to cling on to this year because you look at Red Bull 404, McLaren 361, Ferrari 340, and Mercedes now on 284. So they're only.
Do you think you can get a healthy lunch for €1
scam
for
out.
Maybe a snack? No, there's
Or
not
maybe
even a
not
coffee.
scam out, but
This is Plenty Shake, an affordable, healthy meal you can take
Yeah.
on the go.
So people are spending
who
way
cares?
too much on lunch because they don't have time to cook at
I
home.
would
Then
say
we turn to
scam out.
fast foods that taste good but lack nutrition.
Plenty Shake changes that. It's made of real food and has plant proteins, carbs, fiber, vitamins, minerals, and more. It comes in 12
Yeah,
amazing
true.
flavors, and you get everything your body needs in less than 2 minutes for only
it,
€1.43.
And they even have a 30-day money-back guarantee.
Oh, nice.
No questions
Do they?
asked. Plus, if you buy 4 bags, you can get an extra bag and additional goodies for free. So if you want to start saving on lunch while still eating healthy, get Plenty Shake now.
well, eating, you will be drinking. That's that stuff, at least when you mix it with water.
I
That's
used to do
drinking.
puzzles, paint by numbers, cross
This
stitch,
fucking,
crochet. Now,
At
I
least
do
this is the
diamond
normal
painting.
They
The
made a weird
addictively
path.
relaxing, no-mess creative craft outlet of your dreams. Make an
True.
inspirational masterpiece and let each moment shine with meditative diamond painting. Each Diamond Art Club kit includes everything you need to create a dazzling work of art at home. With a vast assortment of officially licensed, stunning designs, explore themes like animals, landscapes, popular character art, fantasy, and so much more. You're sure to find a diamond painting kit that speaks to you. Good for the soul, and no experience necessary. Unleash your creativity with Diamond Art Club today.
Yeah, today, do it. You will probably not waste money on this. Buy it while you
120
can.
points behind Red Bull. I know I say only, but look, a couple more 1-2s for Mercedes when they just pop out a nice car one weekend, and it's game on in the constructors. So it's a shame, I think, when it comes
That
to
Maax had that massive head start
Yeah.
and got such a lead.
And both for that and in the drivers, it's a shame that Mercedes weren't able to really have a car to get Hamilton and Russell more points, because they're on 143 and 141 respectively. So they are still miles behind Verstappen. But had they had
They
just
are.
a better season before Austria, and they could be the ones that we're hyping up. But right now, they're so far behind we can't.
Yeah, but you can look at it
True.
and go, yeah, it's not easy to get excited about the Constructors' Championship. But just to put a positive spin on it, and I thought this as well when I was watching essentially the top 8 cars all separated by a second about 20 laps in. Oh my word, is 2025 just so beautifully poised. Can we just go into the new season with the same cars? No development allowed now. Just
Banned.
yeah. Ban all development.
No.
Well, Red Bull need to make some progress, and Ferrari.
A little bit of Ferrari. Just let
Ferrari.
catch
Sorry,
up
Ferrari
a little
catch
bit.
up
Come
a little
on.
bit.
Just a tiny.
And Red Bull.
But yeah, wow. Seeing just the mix of the fact that we were saying all of last year, oh, just imagine if the fight for P2, oh, imagine if Red Bull were in that pack. They are in that pack now. They are very much in that pack, and that is what is making it so exciting. We're on a run of multiple different winners. Maax hasn't won, like I say, in the last 4 races. The pole sitter hasn't won since Monaco. Can't remember who that was. So
True.
6 races
Who
in a
was
row
that?
where pole sitter hasn't won.
I don't remember
Insane.
that race.
I know you're like, Monaco, Charles Leclerc, obviously the last one to convert, but also he's the latest one not to convert as well. So we won't talk about that one though too much, because he's added to that tally. Next question, James BWFC22. P8 in the race and now P8 in the championship. Have we seen the last of Sergio Perez in that Red Bull seat? Okay, it's time for us to decide what we think is going to happen. And
He is actually P7 now, I believe. Let's see. Results. And driver standings. Yeah, he's 7. He was 8 when George Russell got the win. But because he was disqualified, he's now 7. So there's fake news about being 8.
I am going to lock in that Sergio Perez will not be driving for Red Bull after the summer break.
They will.
Yeah, I
Because they need to fix the car before that. And then when they know the car is good and he's still bad, then they remove him.
think that Red Bull will make a very difficult decision to swap-a-roo Daniel Ricciardo into that seat to test, little test bed.
Yeah, but I believe after they know the car, let's see, should that be? No, go away. I believe one more race /2. If they know the car is good and so Perez is still bad.
Perez, go get your confidence back in V-Carb. We've done it once before, done it a few times before. Go, just pop in there. It is in disaster class territory now, unfortunately, for Sergio. He started on the front row of the grid. I believed that he could I basically said, I said to you, I think on the watch along, Tommy, I was like, right, Perez is there. Like, he's in the mix. Qualifying's out the way. It's now just race. Just chill.
Which is
just,
what he's been good at. Like,
yeah,
I
which
say
is what
good,
we thought
but
would
like,
be better.
do you know what I mean? That's what his better form. Yeah.
But once again, he fell away, and it looked reasonably promising at the beginning of the race. But sadly for him, he just didn't have the speed to stay with Formula A.
The race.
Even Sainz was passing him. I know he finished 40-odd seconds back at the end because he pitted on soft tyres for the fastest lap, but he was still off the back. And Red Bull, as we've already spoken about, cannot afford this to happen. They have to make in my opinion, they have to make a radical, maybe not permanent change, but a radical little, go on, someone, Lawson, anyone, just try and just see if you can do something a little bit different. It might end up being the worst decision ever, and whoever goes in there crashes 3 races in a row. But Red Bull used to be this tenacious team. I think they need to get back to that now.
Yeah. Finally, we disagree with something on the podcast because I don't think he is going to be replaced. And the funny thing is, I'd love to give reasons why, but it is just vibes. Because you look at it on...
The car is still bad. When the car is good, they then decide if they want to keep him or not. That's the reason.
but you look at it on paper, and there's absolutely no way any other driver is staying in that seat, particularly at Red Bull, the team that basically, yeets you off into the sun as soon as you have a bad race. I mean, Kvyat just had to have one little bump with Sebastian Vettel, even though he'd got a podium in the last race, and they went, see ya. And now, Perez can be... The stats for Perez are just so damning. You can't even defend him now. You can say all you like, the strategy, and Red Bull's not here this year. And last year, he had a great excuse that he was still finishing second in the Constructors' title. So you could have that argument of, oh, well, why does it matter? He's finished second in the Constructors. Doesn't matter if he's finishing there. He's doing exactly what he needs to do. He's bagging Constructors' points. Yes, he's absolutely miles off Maax, and it's not very interesting for us fans because we want to see a championship battle, but he's doing what he needs to do. This year, he is costing, and very likely if he stays, will cost Red Bull the Constructors' Championship. And you go into next year, and you think, could he also cost Maax the Drivers' Championship if Maax has no rear gunner, no one to fight? Because you look at Mercedes, it's maybe not the greatest example because they're leaving, but when they have 2 good drivers like Hamilton and Russell, I know it's controversial, but they're finishing 1-2, and then that does put you in the position that, say, Lewis Hamilton was somehow in the championship and George Russell had leapfrogged him. They could swap, they could do things, same with McLaren. They were 1-2 in Hungary, and there was the whole debate, should they, shouldn't they? But at least they have that option. Red Bull do not have that option because Perez can start second and Maax can start 11th, and Maax can get stuck the entire race and still finish ahead of him. And Perez's form is just absolutely diabolical now. I know he doesn't have the best strategies, but he's just got no pace, and he's not scoring barely any points.
So I've done this maths off the top of my head, but I think in the last 8 races, which includes a sprint as well, so 9 or 8.5, he scored 25 points. Like that
that's one victory, yeah.
Yeah, so he's had 1 victory worth of points in 8.5 races, which is, I mean, I know he's retired a couple of times, but one of them was Monaco, where he had his part to play, and then Canada as well. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, that form, it's not even a debate of whether they're going to lose the Constructors' Championship. They will lose the Constructors' Championship.
I love how you said all of this, and yet you're the one that's like, no, he's going to keep his seat.
I just think he will, because they're backed him.
Okay, who they lose it to? McLaren, they can't get good points. Mercedes, they need to get a lot of good points. Or Ferrari. I mean, to who will they lose it to? That's my question.
Yeah, and this is the mad thing. It makes no logical sense why they'd
make one up then. Stop being retarded. If they want to fix the car, they surely need the at least Perez to show for 1 or 2 races that the car that Max Verstappen can show now is good. What he can do. And then if he still can't do anything, then you can remove him.
Keep him. But I just think they'll keep him because they don't. It's just something. I've just got this weird feeling that they don't want to rock the boat.
The boat's getting.
And also there's something I believe. Because everything what they said that is so weird that they kept him for so long. And that's one of my opinion is, or beliefs. Maybe Max Verstappen have made so. If they want to keep him in Red Bull, they must keep Perez to be in the other car. So if they want to fire Perez, Max leaves. So if they want to keep Max, they need to keep Perez. And there you have the problem. What do you want to lose? Both the drivers or a lot of money and points? 100% flopper red.
But the boat is sinking. The boat is sinking.
Yeah. Well, fascinating. We'll see. And I promise you, if there's any news that happens during the summer break, we will be there. It doesn't matter if Tommy's on his yacht. He will be live, and we will be there. So let us know. Let us know if you're on YouTube what you think and if Perez will indeed keep his seat or not.
Actually, I've thought of one reason why they won't.
Merch.
Finally.
Not that.
Oh.
And not the Mexican Grand Prix. It's that if they put Daniel Ricciardo in, where's the, I feel like Perez is more likely to be fired completely because surely Red Bull want Lawson and Tsunoda to stack up against each other, and then you see who's good. Like swapping Perez and Ricciardo doesn't solve the Lawson problem of how good he is and what should they do with him, does it? So maybe that's something.
So they fire him completely.
Well, I genuinely think it's more likely than him being demoted to AlphaTauri. That's
yeah,
my thoughts.
I think that would probably be a lot more of an expensive get-out clause if they binned him off entirely. But I do get, if there wasn't any of that...
Yeah, then the Mexican Grand Prix would be cancelled.
Yeah, God, yeah, that would not be fun. Okay, cool.
Oh shit, man. I mean, I could actually, who knows? If a lot of people that are part or knows and have a lot of opinions, it could be a nightmare to try to get into Mexico after that if you're Red Bull. So maybe after Mexico they can fire him.
Move on to the next question from Andy Fleet 22. I love the classic tracks, but do they still have a place in F1 considering the lack of overtaking today? Spa.
Controversial, but true.
Spa, I know George saved that race from the clutches of just...
Until he got disqualified.
Another Spa snooze fest. There's something about this track where the teams clearly run too low of a wing that they don't actually get that much of a benefit, or at least with DRS trains. I don't know. It's sad because I would rate it as one of the best tracks in the world. It's amazing to drive on video games. Drivers love driving it. But when it comes to a race, it isn't really. It's not really a race. They're all just slipstreaming each other. They don't really have too hard of a breaking point into that sort of right-left after the main Kemmel straight. The bus stop chicane doesn't really promote much because you don't have DRS there, obviously, because of the kink. you don't see too much out braking there either, because they're then thinking, well, actually, it's better to just wait till after turn 1 than get a slingshot. So I can't figure out why Spa.
Oh shit! Maax starting last and having a great car made the race more interesting. Then nobody have a great car. And in the start further below. That's interesting. 100% maybe Max Verstappen victory was more interesting than not having it.
Doesn't work. But it's sad to watch because I do love it.
I mean, like, that would be so amazing if Max Verstappen actually had a good car. It was like, how long can Lewis Hamilton keep Max Verstappen behind? But we didn't get anything. We get the George Russell stuff that then got disqualified, that made the race bad again.
I think that is the problem, exactly like you said. F1 has become too reliant on DRS to pass, and DRS isn't strong at Spa. It's not strong at Monza. So these circuits where they have a skinny wing or a skinnier wing, and it's not as extreme at Monza, as Monza, sorry, but they don't. But like you say, because they're opening the DRS flap normally, if they've got
oh shit, that time. A weirdo. Skip.
Somewhere, you know, they need a lot of downforce. You're getting a big change of aero, and you're getting a great chance. But the problem with Spa is it's just not powerful enough. You create these DRS trains, and I do think Spa would be better off without DRS. I don't think it's needed because you get a slipstream anyway, and the problem is always going to be that the cars struggle to pass, and the DRS is not doesn't work there. If there's no kind of you're relying on a bit of a sprinkle of weather really to provide good races now, because there's also, like you say, the move into the best stop chicane. We have seen sometimes that is actually a better option, and it is a confusing one, because if you told someone that hadn't watched the Grand Prix or knows about Formula 1 but maybe doesn't watch anymore, and you said that in the race today it was almost impossible to pass, that someone took a big risk and they did one less pit stop, like a one-stop strategy, because they get track position because it's so hard to pass, and they'd win the race because the person even on shredded old tyres wouldn't be able to be overtaken, you'd go, oh, that was Hungary then, or Monaco. But it was Spa, which on paper, you look at that track and you look at the same with Monza. It doesn't really make sense, and it shouldn't be the case, but it is. That Monza as well, I'm sure we'll have this conversation when we get to Monza, unless it's rainy or you maybe have some kind of curveball. You don't get much passing there either, because the sport is too reliant on DRS, and it's just not powerful there.
Well, sorry, Spa.
It's too flat. Actually, one more thing. It's too. The Formula 1 cars are too quick. I know we've said this so many times, and we've had debates over this, that when every single corner is flat out, where's the mistake to be able to pass? And days gone by, here goes being Tommy, sorry, but you look at Eau Rouge and Radion, Radion actually, and that used to be an incredible corner because the cars would have to maybe do a slight lift. It was a corner, whereas now all these amazing corners, 130R, so many at Monza, Eau Rouge and Radion, Blanchimont, like these corners are just flat, so no one's making a mistake around them because you're just going this is technical.
Yeah, and making it sound like he could just pop himself in the car as well.
Well, yeah, exactly. Even though my head would fall off. But apart from that,
easy.
It's just flat out. Yeah, you're just flat out around every corner, and you're never going to get overtaking if you're flat out, because where's the difference in braking?
True.
And someone's got you're never going to take a better line through a corner than
more
someone
changes
if
for
every
the
corner
car
is flat,
is needed.
because where's the disparity like between the two things? So that for me is why it under-delivered.
Maybe that's what an IndyCar also need to change, because man, that's also boring.
Interesting.
So get
worse
rid of
F1
the grip.
cars. Yeah. Worse
There's the
F1
debate
cars will
again.
actually make Spa more interesting. I
But also,
yeah,
as
I do
never
agree.
change the rules again because it's good now.
Make them slower, but exactly the same.
Yeah.
There you go. Next question. P1 Patreon member Savage Monkey 3.0. Is there a way for Lewis to get out of the Ferrari contract?
Right.
No.
True.
He's not going to. And yeah, Ferrari, I think Charles did a great job to hold on to P4, which is insane to say it out loud considering he started on pole position, but I don't think... Well, to be fair, first half of the race, there was a chance. He was there with Lewis within a couple of seconds and did a really good job, but fell away a little bit towards the second half and then just came under fire from everyone else. But will Lewis be regretting it? Mercedes aren't that far ahead of Ferrari that he will probably be losing sleep over it. It's a few tenths a lap, maybe, and that's only at some tracks. At other tracks, Mercedes and Ferrari are battling, and it's very close. So as much as Lewis is doing very well at the moment with Merc, it's not a Alpine, Aston Martin
No.
from last year sort of comparison.
Yeah, it'd be very easy to kind of think that because Mercedes have been on this
100%
great run of
Clayfish
form and Ferrari have maybe under-delivered since Monaco, that we go, oh, Hamilton, look, he needs to go back to Merc. He's made a really awful decision.
Yeah.
Because he's gone there, and we said it at the start that it is a sideways step. Maybe it isn't now, but he's gone there in the hope that in 2026, when the regulations change, Ferrari are the one. And maybe we can have this conversation when we know what the pecking order is in whether Merc come up the blocks firing in 2026, and he might look stupid. But for now, he's banking on the fact that Ferrari get it right in 2026. There's a huge regulation change. It's going to mix things up again. And like you say, they're not, even though it might sound quite a mad thing to say when we've been talking about how underwhelming Ferrari have been and Mercedes have won 3 of the last 4, they're not a million miles apart, like you say. It's not like...
And also McLaren should have won all these races.
They are still very much in Formula A together, and I think that the performance of Mercedes, you look at those wins, Hamilton was brilliant in Silverstone, and they looked very quick there. The George one in Austria was inherited, and this one, while they got a 1-2, and it's nothing to take away from them, it could have been McLaren. It could have, it definitely could have been McLaren as well. They definitely weren't the closest car, and it's incredibly close in Formula A. So I don't think Hamilton needs to be like, oh God, it's not like you say, or like say he'd gone to Aston Martin based on what their form was like at the start of 2023. Then you go, yeah, you're looking a bit stupid.
Yeah,
probably doesn't want to go there. But at the moment, no, I don't think it's panic stations.
No, and it shouldn't be because Ferrari are the best team in the world. Let's go now to biggest winner.
They could be.
And it has to be... I was going to say Mercedes, but I think George Russell, actually. I think George Russell solo, singularly.
No, that's
What
wrong.
I'll go for as
That's
biggest
so
winner.
wrong.
Yeah, I think Mercedes' biggest winner on paper, but I don't think Hamilton will feel like a winner after that victory's got away from him. So,
He didn't.
just thinking about that, actually, can you imagine if Hamilton hadn't won at Silverstone, and how would have? Oh, that would have. Imagine how.
And George had won or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus. But thankfully he did, and it was an amazing moment. So,
He
okay, we're both
wasn't.
going for George, are we? Yeah.
Yeah, I think George.
Okay, and then biggest loser.
George Russell.
Lando? Or is
no,
that too
I
harsh?
think
in the
it's
six?
I think it's a little harsh considering.
Perez?
I want to throw in Haas, because they looked pretty horrendous this weekend, actually.
Yeah, they're racing Kick Sauber and stuff.
Yeah, like they were nowhere in terms of dry pace. Perez is obviously quite, maybe, well, he quite might literally lose his seat. So I think maybe Perez deserves biggest loser.
But it's actually
because
Russell.
he had the opportunity to do something great,
Yours,
and it
Russell.
didn't. It fell away.
Well, what
It's
about
a disaster, I'd say, to finish 8th.
what about Stake or Kick Sauber that one of their cars
Stake F1 team Kick Sauber. Come on. It's easy name to say.
conked out, and one of them was running in the points, and you
With 8
go,
laps,
surely,
7 laps to go,
surely just drive till your tyres explode at that point, and just take the consequences of what
Not
happens.
literally. We don't want Bottas to drive to his tyres literally explode.
No,
it was
but
8 laps to go. You would think.
Yeah, just stay
There
out.
must
'cause
have been a reason that I haven't heard yet as to why they pitted with 8 laps to go. It's insane.
Because even if he did stay out and his tyres fell off a cliff, he's finishing 16th, 17th, 18th, or 19th anyway. So what's the point?
Yeah, ridiculous. Okay, yeah, maybe. I'm gonna still lock in Perez, I think, actually, because that was
yours,
a
Russell.
shame for him. And what are you going to go for?
Annoyingly, it does have to be Perez, I think, because he's put so much pressure on himself going into the summer break when that Red Bull themselves have said it's crunch time, and that's the...
My dad has just messaged me, have you seen Russell could be disqualified?
They got the news! They got the news! Will I say his must be the biggest loser now?
What?
Is my dad trolling me?
Nope, it's not.
Technical... after this fuel was drained out of the car was not fully drained according to draining procedure.
Oh my god.
Oh, okay.
After the race car, it was weighed and its weight was 798 kilograms, which is the minimum weight. Fine. After this, fuel was drained out of the car and 2.8 litres of fuel were removed. The car was not fully drained according to the draining procedure submitted by the team in their legality documents as whatever is fulfilled. The car
Could be
was weighed
disqualified.
again, and the weight was 796.5. The calibration of the outside and inside scales was confirmed and witnessed by the competitor. As this is 1.5 kilograms below the minimum weight requested... This has now been referred to the stewards. Oh,
he's under investigation. He's about to get disqualified.
God, Charles Leclerc's on the podium. Sorry.
Okay, so that's wild.
Oh my God.
You know what I'm going to say, don't you?
What?
That we literally went, biggest winner, George Russell. My dad's just texted me. He's about to be disqualified.
Yeah, that's not gone too well. Okay,
Oh.
so how quickly is that going to change?
He's surely going to be disqualified if that is the case.
Biggest loser.
So who's messed up here? Or is it just a minimum weight problem here?
It's the minimum weight, so he's not.
So the car was not fully drained according to the draining procedure submitted by the team in their legality. Oh, so they didn't fully drain it, and then they did, and then it's under the minimum weight. Uh-oh! Yeah,
He's in trouble.
Game over. That's a Hamilton victory. Oh
Wow.
my God!
Biggest winner, Lewis Hamilton.
Imagine if that was Hamilton's first victory as well since 2021, and it had been
Yeah.
inheriting it like that. Oh my God!
Wow.
Wow.
Oh my god,
Okay.
did Mercedes fuck that up so easily?
New question. Perez has shot up to 7th in the championship now. Do you think this will save his seat?
It will.
Oh yeah! Wow. No.
Imagine if you had a clause that, like, if you're 8th
Yeah.
by the summer break,
If you're bottom of Formula A, you're out.
and Sergio's in Parc Ferme taking bits off the Mercedes.
Right, well, you just had a
Wow.
live reaction on the podcast there to us potentially having George Russell disqualified. We're going to finish the podcast,
And then we'll record a little bit afterwards if it,
well,
I guess.
yeah, if it does change. I mean, is there anything to really
Hopefully
add?
we'll find out soon.
I don't think we need to. It'll probably be a social clip. No, we're not going to
Yeah,
add
fair.
it to the podcast because this will be going out. So, right,
It's the
predictions
biggest
are going to be
loser.
screwed.
yeah, let's go to
actually.
predictions then. Because right now it's 32 for me, 34 for Tommy. Biggest good surprise, I said Lando Norris. That is a big fat 0.
And I went for Sergio Perez.
Nope. Moving on. Don't even try. And
No, I'm
don't
not.
even
That
try.
was looking so good as well, wasn't it? But
It
no.
was until he started the race.
Until he drove.
Biggest flop. I said Lance Stroll, which crashed his car in free practice 3, and I thought it was absolutely on.
He's actually finished
but then
all right.
He's finished 12th, which is really
40.
irritating. Not because I didn't want him to not do well, but I also did because I wanted the point. Yeah, it's going to be. I don't think it's a point, sadly, which is a shame.
It is not. And I went for Aston Martin, which Alonso got a little point.
Okay, we need to do some counting. 18, 20, 22, 24, 30, 36, 40. 40, so 2049. Then we can continue.
So they weren't very good, but they
weren't horrendous.
They weren't horrendous. They were mixing up with Alpine, which I thought they'd be worse than them. So, no.
No, indeed. Pole position, I went for Lewis Hamilton. No.
And all right, here we go. So I went for Max Verstappen, and I am very annoyed at myself because I said it with my chest as well, and I just got completely muddled up. I don't know why. It was even straight after the podcast. I was like, no, that's not true, because it happened last year. And of course, Max wasn't on pole position. So I'm so annoyed at myself. I'm not going to give myself a point. One, because it's not right. But I do want to have a conversation about this.
Okay.
And nothing to do with me trying to, genuinely nothing to do with me trying to claim a point, because I don't think any of us, even you, would have predicted that Charles Leclerc would have been on pole.
I've had some crazy predictions in my time.
You have. I was actually chatting to my dad about this, and because we were chatting after qualifying, and he said about, were you wrong or weren't you wrong? And one thing that he mentioned is that Formula One, he was like, to be fair to you, Formula One do not help themselves, because if you are, we are veteran fans of the sport, and we got confused. The commentators got confused. They were having a debate about it as well. And if pole position was always going to be Charles Leclerc, they need to start owning it more. Because what happens after qualifying is Formula One tweet a graphic going, Charles Leclerc starts on pole, not saying pole, which confuses fans even more. Just say he's on pole. Then they tweet one saying Max is fastest. But the worst thing of all is that if Max isn't pole position, why is he then going to collect an award from Damon Hill that says pole position award on it?
True.
That just confuses fans even more. Surely that is Charles Leclerc's award, because he's got the pole position, and surely that is the entire point of that pole position award, is it's awarded to the person on pole position, which was Charles Leclerc. So that just confuses things even more in a sport that's already confusing.
Well, it's confused
for fans.
you, mate.
And it's confused me.
The GOAT, the wiki of Formula One.
Well, exactly. And it's kind of ridiculous that if it was never a pole position, because, and I feel like this maybe was, and maybe it is the pole position award that's changed it. But I remember when Michael Schumacher, I'm sorry to bring this up because it is painful, and even me, who's not a big Schumacher fan, but Michael Schumacher in Monaco, a beautiful lap, and he set the fastest time, and it was instantly like, well, he's not on pole, he's starting 11th. And it was never even discussed about it being a pole position for Michael Schumacher. So why now are we like giving Max an award and
sponsors?
Well, yeah, but it should go to Charles Leclerc.
Thing, isn't it?
It ends up just looking a bit
farcical.
But that's
the thing. If it's fastest qualifier, fine. That's what you should call it. Call the tyre fastest qualifier. Then Max gets it. But they're not. They're saying pole position award.
And they have every right to change what pole position is, because they did it in the sprint. Where you winning a sprint was technically a pole position statistic.
Man, that's so mean against Kevin Magnussen. So mean.
Even though fastest in qualifying, and then that caused a lot of confusion. So I think this is the second year, ironically, that it's happened, and in a row. And the way Spa is on the calendar, I think it will continue to be that way, where Maax and other drivers take engine penalties for it. So I think they need to start doing something about it.
Well, we'll see. It's a very small thing, but it's a thing that matters, because clearly everybody is still very confused. Okay, let's now go to our top 3, and I hope to God George Russell does not get disqualified, because otherwise I'm getting cooked. Because in 3rd place, I went for Oscar Piastri. Point. Lock it in. 1. Lovely.
For now.
No, now. Locked in.
No, it's not locked
Results
in.
do not change. Locked in.
No, because I've had this before. P3, I went for Max Verstappen, which I was actually quite confident that could come true when we saw his pace in qualifying, but he did not fly through the field like I expected. And another non-podium weekend for Max.
Non-podium weekend, indeed. P2, I went for Lewis Hamilton. Locked in. Point. Locked in. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're now even. And that's the end of the podcast. Goodbye.
P2, I went for Lando Norris. No.
Incorrect. I went for P1, Lando Norris, which was incorrect.
And P1, I went for Lewis Hamilton.
No, 0 points. And
I will be delaying
Tommy,
the next question for as long as possible.
Tommy, let us Michael Massey this. Come on.
Yeah, true.
Then it's 34 each. But I know, you will have to change it. It's fine.
Yeah, we will have to change it.
Well, actually, no, it's not going to be 34. Actually, no, to be fair. Right, one crazy prediction. I went for Max Verstappen will not have one sassy radio message during the race. I don't think we heard anything from Max Verstappen the entire race, which was mad.
We did not, yeah. I wonder if he deliberately just didn't say anything. He was sassy to journalists and stuff, but not over the team radio.
I will take that point every day of the week. Yep. Thank you very much.
And he had every right to be, didn't he?
Yeah, stuck in 7th for a lot.
And I went for Alpine get a point. Chefed.
You did chef there. I mean, wasn't really that big of a chef. I mean, to be fair, Alpine after the last few races,
I was going to say they've been absolutely terrible.
Fair. So fair enough. Yeah. Well done.
Well done. Enjoy the money.
Congratulations. And then the 3 crazy predictions from you lot. FFP to MF. Max Verstappen gets a full 8 hours sleep and wins. No. Sam 467822 Ferrari.
So maybe he shouldn't sleep so much.
NF, nope. And Polski Polak 2, a driver from Formula B, will be on the podium. No. And I've just seen a funny tweet that I have to read out from Crystal Horner. I don't know why. It's because I was looking at the George Russell stuff and I thought I'd just include this. Yeah. It's Sergio Perez after finishing P8, and then it's a screenshot saying, the haters said I couldn't do it and they were correct. Honestly, great call from the haters.
Well, he might still get P7. So
he might get P7.
Stop slandering him.
And then, exactly.
He's the
Very
GOAT.
true. Very true. Tommy,
yeah.
I was going to say what your final thoughts are.
You were.
You were about to say your final thought, and then
no, but I was about to say something else. I know this is a very long podcast, but
yeah,
there's just to go into more of the Russell chat. Ruth Buscombe made a great point that basically on a one-stop, you obviously shed a lot of tyre rubber, which makes it is obviously going to make the car a lot lighter, and then normally. A lot of Formula One tracks, you do an in-lap where you can basically roll around and you see them going into the grass and picking up a lot of rubber on their tyres, and it adds weight to the car. But in Spa, it's such a long lap that they don't do that kind of victory celebration lap. So you obviously couldn't do that, which is, an interesting point that that also hasn't helped George Russell with that.
It's the one stop, some more tyre wear. Shed off more of that stuff. Also running in clean air for so long as well, you can't fuel save as much, perhaps. So there's plenty of theories as to why George Russell may well be disqualified, but I don't think there's many loopholes. There's not anything that Mercedes can really say in order to the rules are the rules. You have to be the minimum weight, and it's black and white like that. It's like the plank wear in
the fuck did they do
in the USA? Just because it was 0.01 millimeters more worn down, you're still disqualified. That's how I see it anyway, but we'll wait and see what the news is, which I don't think will be on this podcast, Tommy. As much as you've tried to delay it, it's going to be a while.
Yeah, it will be a while, which is a shame that the race has ended that way. But hey ho.
Hey ho, indeed. I'd actually feel very sorry for George if he does genuinely get disqualified, because that was a sensational drive from him, and Grace clearly agrees as well in the background. So, Tommy, what are your final thoughts?
Final thoughts are, my word, does this season ever stop delivering on drama? It is crazy, and we've now got a long old wait for the next race, but we will be doing... we'll still be doing content and things, driver ratings for this, and of course we'll do our mid-season one as well for those that are asking about that.
Yeah, mid-season rankings will be coming in a few days' time, so look forward to that. And thank you as always. It's been an amazing first half up until the summer break season. Thank you for listening to this podcast, for watching, for supporting us. We love doing this, all of this, as you can quite clearly imagine. We're still doing it after however many years of talking absolute waffle about Formula One. But thank you for joining us. We won't be going anywhere. We'll still have content coming out, not as much, because summer break, we've got to refresh and think about the Olympics or whatever we're going to be thinking about.
Got to go party on my yacht.
Exactly. Tommy, you've got couple of yachts now, so enjoy that, mate. I'll be in my rubber dinghy, and we'll see you tomorrow for another piece of content. And yeah, I don't know what I'm saying now. It's been a long podcast. Lots of love. Bye.
We'll be diving into Zhou Guanyu's race and drive ratings. Don't you worry.
All 7 laps of it. Yep. Bye.
Yeah, they did see that live. Let's see. Oh, let's see the race. Then maybe have some more news about what happened after the ad. Blockfish Magenta. Do we have a Blockfish Magenta? There we have Blockfish Magenta. Magenta pink. Blockfish light grey. Blockfish light grey. Oh, let's see. Let's see what information I have.
Mercedes is delighted a surprise 1-2 at the Belgian Grand Prix quickly turned to anguish after George Russell was disqualified from a hard-fought win. Mercedes winning a Formula 1 race is no longer the absurd fantasy that it was a few months ago, but its initial 1-2 at Spa was still unexpected. The shock value of that though was quickly surpassed when the stewards disqualified Russell just hours after the flag, ensuring teammate Lewis Hamilton won after all. Hamilton was crestfallen after the race, believing that his second win of the season had been taken from under him by a superbly ambitious one-stop strategy from Russell. But it was Russell's turn to despair when the stewards deemed his Mercedes to be under the required weight limit after the race. So how did Mercedes fall foul of such a simple F1 rule, and where on earth did its 1-2 earning pace come from?
True. What the fuck happened?
Let's start off with why Russell lost his win. His car was examined by the FIA after the race, with the technical delegate noting Russell's Mercedes was initially weighed at 798 kilograms. But that's the minimum weight the car must be without fuel on board, and after 2.8 litres of fuel were extracted from the car for the required post-race checks for compliance, the W15 weighed in at 796.5 kilograms, 1.5 kilograms below the limit. This was a black and white breach of the technical regulations, for which Mercedes offered no mitigating circumstances, and admitted it was a genuine error as Russell was disqualified. Mercedes team boss Toto Wolff struggled to offer an explanation in his media session after the race, understandably downbeat that news of Russell's investigation had overshadowed what was initially the team's first 1-2 in almost 2 years. Wolff confirmed there was no damage on Russell's car and said there was no excuse for the car being underweight, something his old sparring partner Christian Horner called a mistake in Mercedes' calculations. Mercedes already broke its win drought at Austria last month and won straight after at Silverstone, but nobody expected its Spa triumph. The team looked in big trouble on Friday, as Red Bull and McLaren looked likely to continue their recent front-running battle at Spa, even with Max Verstappen having to take a 10th-place grid penalty. Verstappen top qualifying by over 6/10, raising the likelihood of a third straight comeback win from a grid penalty at Spa, while McLaren's own chances were boosted by a more race-leaning setup. Hamilton and Russell took 3rd and 6th on the grid, but neither were dreaming of victory on Sunday, and were instead anticipating a swift Verstappen fightback. Hamilton predicted even fighting for a podium would be really tough, considering Verstappen and the McLarens behind had faster cars.
Yeah, but Mercedes, they failed
But
again.
neither Mercedes would have been up there without some crucial changes on Friday night. Much of Mercedes' progress this season has come from a steady stream of upgrades since Miami 3 months ago, and that has gradually pushed the car forward.
Red.
At Spa, the team abandoning a new floor after Friday proved to be something of a red herring amid its turnaround. Among the upgrades at Spa were new designs to create additional load on the front of the floor and increase the diffuser's effectiveness. This was mainly about adding downforce, but there were warning signs on a difficult Friday as Hamilton and Russell were both more than a second off the pace, with signs of problematic bouncing and balance issues. So Mercedes opted to remove the floor and some accompanying bodywork to give itself a known baseline for the rest of the weekend, especially as rain was forecasted for qualifying. That removed a variable and helped Hamilton qualify 3rd, and although Hamilton felt that opportunity came largely because of the rain, his performance in the race indicates that the change of aero spec and some other setup adjustments put the Mercedes in a much better window. An important question was whether the upgrade was actually the cause of the problems Mercedes suffered on Friday or not. Russell was pretty confident those upgrades were working as expected, and after the race Wolff declared removing the upgrade wasn't the reason for the turnaround. He believes the team tripped over an unrelated mechanical issue and insisted the upgraded floor will be back on the car at Zandvoort after the summer break. That would suggest it's not a sign that a good streak of effective upgrades has ended. But either way, this performance reaffirms how
hopefully
competitive its
ended.
car already is without the upgrades and how monumental Mercedes' turnaround in 2024 has been. This should have always been Hamilton's second victory of 2024. He'd outqualified Russell and had looked the stronger Mercedes driver throughout the weekend. Hamilton was leading the race in the early stages, while Russell was seemingly an outside contender for the podium at best. But Russell had different ideas with a genius one-stop strategy, the push for which he led from the cockpit, clocking midway in his second stint that he was going to be able to take his hard tyres 34 laps. Mercedes' own simulations told that Russell would finish in 5th on either the 1 or 2 stop strategy, but Russell's
Well, they was more right with not winning because he got disqualified.
hards lasted remarkably well. Russell said it felt like driving in the simulator when he was leading, and he couldn't understand why a one-stop wouldn't be possible. He essentially defied the pre-race expectations of Pirelli, Mercedes and the other teams, as demonstrated by the fact that none of the other frontrunners committed to the one-stopper. And even when Hamilton was consistently 6 to 7/10 a lap faster than Russell when he was catching him, once he got there he couldn't do anything to threaten Russell. With good traction out of all the key corners, Russell was able to keep his teammate at bay, and it never realistically looked like Hamilton was going to be able to take the lead. The job Russell did surprised many in Mercedes and elsewhere in the paddock. He even earned plaudits from rivals, with McLaren team boss Andrea Stella praising Russell's supreme tyre management. While the win doesn't stand, it's still a significant intra-team victory, given there's only half a season left for Russell to prove he's still Mercedes' spearhead when Hamilton leaves and another potential megastar in Kimi Antonelli likely joins him.
McLaren only had the 4th fastest car in qualifying at Spa, but in the race it looked like Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris were actually quickest. The problem is neither of them could quite do enough with that to take the win. Norris kind of removed himself from contention early on. That was when he was on the outside as Piastri went inside into turn 1 at the start. Norris understeered a little bit, dropped the wheels on the gravel, fell back and never quite recovered. Found himself in DRS trains and stuck behind his would-be title rival Maax Verstappen. As for Piastri, it took a while for his race to really get going, and there were 2 key moments that cost him race time that ultimately he'll be ruining at the end, given how close he got to the Mercedes. One was overshooting ever so slightly, coming in for his final pit stop. That cost him a couple of seconds there, and then again it took him, he lost maybe a second or 2 in race time, taking 1 more lap than he wanted to and really needed to clear Charles Leclerc's Ferrari. So by the time Piastri was in clear air and was able to catch the battling Mercedes, even though they weren't quite fighting wheel to wheel, he just ran out of time. It's frustrating for McLaren. It will probably go down as another near miss, another race in which they've had probably the fastest car and not quite gotten away with the result that they actually deserved on pace, but not in terms of execution. The only silver lining for them is that they have at least taken a few more points out of Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship.
That's not much.
Red Bull dominated qualifying at Spa, and even out of form Sergio Perez was able to qualify 3rd fastest. So why did its victory bid, well, not fall apart, but just never even get going? Verstappen was removed from the picture with a 10th-place grid penalty, but that's not stopped him in recent years at Spa when he's breezed past the opposition to win after a grid drop. That wasn't possible this time around though, because he just didn't have the car advantage anymore to make it possible, and also because overtaking was much harder than expected in the race. Running a slightly bigger rear wing than rivals meant even with still the best air efficiency in the field, Verstappen couldn't really attack on the straights. He just got stuck on DRS trains. Verstappen had talked of the race being about damage limitation, so this probably wasn't a great surprise to him, but it would have shocked rivals who genuinely thought Verstappen would still come through and be a big threat for victory. In the end, we never really saw what Verstappen was capable of, given he didn't have the pace advantage or the straight line speed to clear his rivals with ease. Verstappen ended up running at the pace of others. Even the interloping Ferrari of Charles Leclerc was too quick to be overtaken before the end of the race. But at least Verstappen was up there in the mix, and he even managed to beat Norris's McLaren. Teammate Perez had by far the more disappointing race. It's one thing for the Red Bull that started 11th not being able to win the Grand Prix, but it's another for the other one who started in 2nd to somehow fall to 8th at the line. This was a long way from the result Perez and Red Bull expected. It thought 3rd and 5th were realistic from its starting positions, and it may well turn out to be his final race for the team. Perez's poor form is what has let McLaren start to put pressure on it in the Constructors' Championship, and that's left Red Bull
I mean, this pressure McLaren are putting on Red Bull, it's so weak. It feels nothing. The pressure is there, but it do nothing. Until they actually start winning races, start not doing mistakes in the races, then the pressure will be on.
seriously considering what to do with him. Talks are planned between team principal Christian Horner and special advisor Helmut Marko as early as Monday after Spa. Perez might be dropped with Daniel Ricciardo as most likely replacement if Red Bull decides his inconsistency is too big a threat to its championship prospects. And Red Bull's just seen the best and worst of him in one weekend. Leclerc had no right to nick pole position and a podium from a weekend where Ferrari clearly had the fourth fastest car once again. His pole was boosted by a high downforce setup and the mixed conditions that Leclerc believes meant he was fighting for pole rather than for fifth. But Leclerc still delivered a typically special lap when it mattered most to help Ferrari to its biggest high since winning in Monaco. Leclerc expected to go backwards on Sunday, and he did so as soon as lap 3 when Hamilton overtook him for the lead. Leclerc did manage to hold up both Verstappen and Norris for the final third of the race, and with Russell's disqualification, that gives him an unlikely podium. But this weekend wasn't particularly a sign that Ferrari has suddenly overcome its problems and stopped its downward spiral that started after Monaco. Carlos Sainz had a muted run to 7th place, and Leclerc was unimpressed to be so far behind Mercedes, who Ferrari had expected to be scrapping with to be the third fastest car this weekend. Ultimately, Leclerc's pole and podium will stand as a small morale boost before a second half of the season where Ferrari will desperately need to get back on terms with its high-flying rivals.
Let's see. The fuck did they even mention? What the fuck they did? Let's see, what doomed Russell? Okay, I don't know if they... Okay, sure. Fuck me. Yeah, let's see what Peter Russell have to say after I have fixed this problem. And then Magenta Brown. No! That's boring. Oh no, Blockfish H. Okay, and then we fix this up. Betty Cyan. Cyan. And then we bet this sign. We get a bet sign while we remember it. Bet sign. Blockfish. Oh no. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Oh, flop a sign. Didn't I look at flopper sign? Oh no, I didn't. Okay, nice. Let's see, now we done the, it should be the flopper now. Flopper, oh, 100% green. Okay, oh, we should move everything down. And then we place down that, and then we can start with Peter Windsor. Let's see if he got the news about George Russell. Nice, no flopper green. Let's see. Yeah, okay, Peter Windsor.
Okay, let's deal with the obvious question first, which is that if George Russell's Mercedes had been on the exact minimum weight limit, legal in other words, would it have been able to have done that amazing 34-lap stint on the hard Pirelli tyre, the one-stop strategy that seemed to have won him the Belgian Grand Prix? My feeling is that he would have, because the margins we're talking about in terms of the weight discrepancy was so small as to make little or no difference actually to the performance of the car. But it's one of these things. It's a rule, it's a rule, it's a rule. You're 1 millimetre out, you're out. And commiserations to George Russell, because he was elated, he was ecstatic after the race, and justifiably so. He pulled off a feat which we don't often see in Formula One, which is to go completely against prognostications, against forecasts from Pirelli, against all the other strategies that the teams are thinking of. And gut feel in the middle of the race felt that the hard Pirelli tyre was getting quicker with every lap. Nobody else said that, although Oscar Piastri came near it at Spa when he suddenly found himself in clear air and said, wow, clear air is king, because he had grip, he had balance, and he was going very, very quickly at that stage of the race. Maybe then, in retrospect, was the moment when McLaren might have thought, yeah, but maybe the hard tyres are getting quicker with every lap as well. They would have heard George Russell's comments, but nonetheless, it was a big, big ask to change strategy midway through. The other point, of course, is that George was never in contention for the lead in the way that perhaps Oscar Piastri was, or certainly as Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc were. He was always in a position where he could maybe take a gamble, if it was a gamble, but he did it on gut feel, and it's not the first time we've seen George driving like this. He's an amazingly adaptable driver, and all credit to him for that call. He's quite spiky with his inputs, but we've seen it from F3 through F2 and now in F1. Time and again, he manages to get a massive amount out of the tyres when other teams, when other cars and other drivers seem to have the tyres go off quite quickly. By contrast, for example, Max Verstappen was complaining about the fronts going away, the hard front going away in the middle stint when he was running that hard tyre. And they gave him some instructions about how to balance that with the diff, and he duly managed to find some time. But he was racing against George Russell at that point, and he was making no headway at all against George. That was a pivotal moment of the race, I think. We're talking about just before half distance. And there was Maax, having got relatively clear out, having got through the crud, if you like. He was now in a position maybe to start challenging for P3, a podium, P4 maybe. But there's nothing he could do about George Russell. Indeed, George was getting away from it. But we don't want to get too far away from the reality of the day, which is that because George Russell has been excluded because his car was underweight, the win of the Belgian Grand Prix goes to Lewis Hamilton in the other Mercedes. It was so interesting. I mean, it was fascinating looking at the body language of both Lewis and George after the race. I think some of it was, Lewis is leaving the team, so George is like kind of our chosen guy for the future. And there was a lot of adulation of George, a lot of kissing, a lot of hugging of mechanics, justifiably so, probably. And Lewis, for a while, was a solitary figure behind the weigh-in area. And you had to feel a bit sorry for him because he'd done that brilliant qualifying lap in the wet. Mainly, as I pointed out yesterday, with fabulous driving into Pouin and other very difficult parts of Spa as well. Did a really good job. And it all came to nothing from his point of view because finishing second.
Isn't that amazing?
In that situation. But now, what's happened? Lewis Hamilton is the winner of the Belgian Grand Prix, and he won it by partly because of that great qualifying lap and where it put him, and secondly, because he just ran a straightforward copybook strategy and a copybook race in reality. He got past Sergio Perez very quickly coming out of Eau Rouge. Very good run on the opening lap of the race, got Perez into Les Combes, and then he was second to Charles Leclerc for a lap or two, and then he breezed past Charles with DRS going into Les Combes and started to pull away to a pretty impressive lead. And at this stage, based on everything we'd seen on Friday when it was dry, and it was dry on race day, you had to think the big challenge is going to come from McLaren. But Mercedes challenge kind of dissipated by 50% at the first corner. Lando Norris made a pretty good start, better start than he normally does. He was kind of alongside Oscar Piastri, but on the outside, Oscar had a really good run down to the inside of La Source and was actually on a very good run down the hill behind Lewis and Sergio Perez, and had to brake and change down as they went into Eau Rouge. He was on such a good run there. But Lando Norris on the outside of La Source ran wide, put a left rear on the dirt as they came down the hill, and lost about 3 places going down the hill. And that was kind of the end of his challenge in a way, because what we saw then, and it affected so many drivers in the race, what we saw then was a Belgian Grand Prix coloured by those 3 very distinctive sectors: fast first sector, fast third sector. Middle sector requires a lot of downforce, a lot of medium speed, high speed corners, and that's where the Red Bull had always been good on Friday and was good yesterday as well. But what we saw at this Belgian Grand Prix, and I think more than any other Belgian Grand Prix since 2022, when we've had the new Formula One regulations, was how difficult it was to follow other cars at Spa. Almost impossible to overtake if you were in some sort of DRS train in Sector 1 or indeed in Sector 3. And that's not the Belgian Grand Prix that the Formula One FIA designers of this regulation promised us when they said the new cars are there to make overtaking much easier. It's much easier to follow other cars. And this circuit, of course, it's high speed, with lots of high speed corners. That's the difference. And I think more than any other track so far, since the beginning of this new regulation, we saw how difficult it was now to follow another car. And a classic example of that is the race of Max Verstappen, because through sectors 1 and 3, he was about the same as everyone else. His top speed was about the same as Ferrari and McLaren and Mercedes. Sector 2 is where he had his advantage. But because Max was in a DRS train for most of the race, he couldn't use his advantage. He couldn't do anything in a straight line. He couldn't do any DRS passes because the car in front had its wing flattened as well. And when it came to Sector 2, where he did have his advantage, he couldn't get near any car, regardless of who it was, particularly George Russell, the number of laps he was behind George. And as a result, his tyres went away as well because he was in that dirty air. So a strange sort of race. I think that factor of how difficult it was to follow other cars was not something that was evident until we got to Spa this year. And of course, it is a factor of how they've made these cars since 2022 less susceptible to bouncing. The aerodynamics under the car, certain curves, certain compound curves, are more aggressive now, and they've created their own turbulence. And as a result, we're almost back. We probably are back to where we were in 2021 in terms of how difficult it is to follow the car in front. And I keep saying that because the whole ethos of this current Grand Prix car formula is to make it much easier to follow the car in front, and that's no longer the case, not on this sort of circuit anyway. And the other point, of course, today going into the race was the tyre strategy. We talked about George a little bit. I mean, if we think about that business of how the hard tyre started to feel better and better with every lap, which is the pivotal moment of the race, and George Russell and his team deciding to give it a go and just stay on out there. You know, I can remember obviously when we had groove tyres, get rid of the grooves and the tyres became slicks. And Mario Andretti got the pole in 1968, the first Formula One race he ever drove at Watkins Glen, because he'd done a lot of Firestone tyre testing, and none of the other Firestone Formula One runners had done so. But he knew these tyres that they were going to run on the Formula One Lotus, his first Formula One Grand Prix. He tested them on the USAC cars. And he knew that the more you ran on these tyres up to a point, the quicker they got. And that's what he did. He just stayed out and practiced and qualifying, and the car went round and round, didn't use any new sets, and got the pole. And it reminded me of that today with George Russell. It was just, I mean, is there a chemical reason for it? I was in touch with Pirelli to ask them if there was, what their thoughts were about that, and if there'd be any specific reason why, if you went beyond a certain point, these hard tyres did start to actually pick up grip. The only response was, well, there was very, very low deg on the hard tyre, and that's always a good thing, obviously, as the fuel load gets lighter. But it doesn't really cover the point of, were these tyres actually getting stickier? And I think they were, because George Russell, under pressure from Lewis, once Lewis had realised, I mean, poor Lewis, I mean, they were on the radio saying, how tight is this going to be? I mean, I'm okay to win this race. And it come back, well, it's going to be tight now, Lewis. And then he started to push it as hard as he could. Obviously, he was on the new set of hard tyres. Why not? And he got to within DRS range of George with 3 or 4 laps to go. But George set his fastest mid-sector time, sector 2 time.
That's
which
amazing.
Is all the corners, the fast corners, on his last lap. That's when he was green. He was personally green, which means that was the quickest lap he did in terms of the sector 2 all day on those 34-lap-old hard Pirellis. So they were actually getting quicker. And I come back to the point of why nobody else realised that. I suppose everybody gets kind of locked into the strategy they've chosen. I mean, Carlos Sainz was an interesting one because he started on tyres, uniquely amongst the front runners of the race, started on hard tyres. And he got the lead because of that. And he was actually going quite well. But then he ran wide coming out of Stavlo. Obviously, the grip was going away. And he came in for a new set of mediums. But one wonders now whether, if he'd gone a couple of laps more, maybe he would have got over that peak, and then the tyres would have got faster and faster, as they did. He couldn't have done the whole race with them, obviously, but and he'd obviously started the race on full tank, so it wasn't a direct parallel. I suppose the other one was Max Verstappen, and I don't think Red Bull ever thought about it because they put so much effort into ensuring that he had 2 sets of new medium tyres going into the race, and that was their kind of chosen race tyre. So Max started on the medium, he went to the new hard, didn't go particularly well, but he was in dirty air throughout. And then in the last stint, they put him on a new set of mediums. And very easy to say it now, very easy to say it sitting here, of course. But I was a bit surprised that they didn't have Max on a set of hard tyres when they took the covers off the cars on the grid. I suspect that's because they didn't know how difficult it was going to be to overtake at Spa. I mean, I've been glibly saying since Friday, if you're going to take a hit with the engine, 10-place grid penalty, etc. Spa's the place to do it, not that difficult to overtake. Well, guess what? It is difficult to overtake, as we now see, as I was saying earlier. With these current cars, really difficult now to follow the car in front. A lot of effect on the aero, a lot of effect on the tyre wear as well. So
made the race boring.
So I guess that's why they didn't do it. The other reason, of course, is that Red Bull had focused very much on the medium being the race tyre. And had they started on the hard, yes, he probably would have made it last longer than, say, Carlos Sainz, a couple of laps more, and he might have been a little bit quicker and got track position, certainly when the pit stops came. And then they would have him on a new set of mediums, and he wouldn't have been on that for very long. But the problem was they didn't have another set of new hards, unlike Mercedes, who did have 2 sets of new tyres going into the race. Red Bull only had 1. Not that George needed the 2, but Lewis did, and that was always there in the background for George if he was going to come in at some point in the back end of the race. But Maax didn't have that, so he would have been out on a used set of hards. Whether that would have been a massive probably would have been okay, given the fact that the hard tyre appeared to get better with every lap, so it may not have been a bad call. But all of those ifs and buts before the race, difficult, easy for me to say, difficult to make those calls before the race started, of course. So it was a very strange race. It was a race coloured by how difficult it was to follow other cars and by all these different sudden strategies coming in. I mean, Aston Martin also did the same strategy as George Russell, and they were within a second of their sort of nearest opposition who'd gone on the traditional strategy. They didn't have quite the same exponential advantage, if you like, that George had, even over Lewis, let alone over the McLaren drivers. So, yeah, maybe it's something just exclusive to Mercedes. Look at it. Maybe it's exclusive to the car that was slightly lighter as well. No, we shouldn't be saying that. And as I said at the start of the video, I don't think the weight would have been a factor in how well those tyres did last on George's car. So commiserations to George, really. I mean, we were talking yesterday about how Maax had to take that 10-place grid penalty through no fault of his own. This is it was an engine thing, the internal combustion engine. And he had to suffer and start P11 and finish P5, now P4, of course. And George, to some extent, is in the same situation. Nothing to do with him. Drove a beautiful race, did everything that you could possibly do. Very few mistakes. Had a bit of a drama in the opening laps when he ran wide at Les Combes and just rejoined the track, had to give up position. But apart from that, as far as I could see, he drove an absolutely faultless race. And to lose the win, it's always a bitter moment when you lose a Grand Prix win because of something like, a kilo or two underweight. Very, very unfortunate. But you wonder how it can happen, actually. The teams have so many protocols, and you'd imagine that Mercedes would be as good as anyone in terms of whatever it is, curfew, spares, lifing, all the factors that go into running a team very well.
You think that?
And to have a car that is underweight is, I'm not going to say it's almost inexcusable, because obviously it happens, but it's going to have to be something that is out of the ordinary, that is something unusual, something to do with wear, something to do with wear rate on the car somewhere, I would guess. But it's up to Mercedes to build in enough margin for that, and it hasn't happened. So yeah, congratulations to Lewis Hamilton, his second Grand Prix win of the year now, and a good win for him. He can't in any way feel lucky to have won this race, because he did everything.
Well, he was lucky.
That he was supposed to do. He drove the perfect race, actually. I can't think of anything that Lewis didn't do extremely well today. And it was, in a way, it was from that grid position he had, just fabulous. I mean, look what happened to Lando Norris, where he qualified and then he made a small mistake coming out of the first corner, La Source hairpin, and then look where it dropped him. And that was it for his day, really. It was too difficult for him to overtake, couldn't do it, and that could easily have happened to Lewis. If he hadn't put in that qualifying lap yesterday, and he hadn't made the great start that he did, he may not have been in a position to win that race. Let's just have a look at how the Mercedes was so good today. Part of it was because I think the McLaren challenge kind of was diluted, as I say, because Lando was never really in it. And Oscar Piastri finished within a second of the two Mercedes, even though in his second pit stop he overran the mark, and the pit stop was about 2.5 seconds too long. So there you go. There's McLaren potentially winning that race with Oscar Piastri. Not to say he would have got past them, of course, but they were right there, and the victory went to Mercedes. And the other question we have to ask ourselves, of course, is what would have happened had Maax started from the pole that he earned in qualifying? Well, he wouldn't have been in traffic. He would have been in free air, assuming he made a good start. And he did make a good start, as it happened. So, yeah, let's assume he was in the front of the race. And I think he would have won it. I think he would have won it because he wouldn't have lost so much time in dirty air, and he had that huge advantage in Sector 2 that he was never really able to play with in the race as it actually happened. So, yeah, that 10-place grid penalty was what Max Verstappen's weekend was all about, from beginning to end. If you look at the top speeds when they were not in DRS, which would be various stages of the race, George Russell 3.24, Lewis Hamilton 3.25, so nothing in it there. Oscar Piastri 3.25, so McLaren and Mercedes on a par in terms of top speed, terminal velocity. Charles Leclerc 3.23, slightly slower than McLaren and Mercedes in a straight line. And Max Verstappen 3.25, so right up there with the others as well. Interesting, 3.26 Lando Norris actually. So 3.26 Lando Norris, 3.25 Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton. Very, very close. Carlos Sainz 3.24. Red Bull didn't have any sort of top speed advantage. I think that's one thing to say. Their advantage this weekend was in Sector 2, and they couldn't do anything with that because it was so difficult to follow other cars, and because of the 10-place grid penalty, Max was always in traffic. That's basically how his race went, and that sums it up. Sergio Perez, one thought he was going to have quite a good race. He was there on the front row of the grid. He got passed by Lewis early on, and then he kind of fell back after that. I think he gave up once he got passed by Max and cruised round, complaining at the end of the race of poor balance and not a lot of things were right. Although in fairness to him, Red Bull did run him on 2 sets of mediums and then a hard just to do something different, I guess. And in a way, it was the wrong thing to do, wasn't it? They should have taken the gamble of start on the mediums and then run one stop hard. Wonder if anybody else is going to try that. Oh yeah, George Russell. And guess what? He won the race on the road. So yeah, it would have been worth doing that with Sergio, but they didn't do that. And so again, that just brings into focus, I think, how courageous? No, I think it was just thinking on your feet and driving hard. And George Russell's really good at that. He's really good at sniffing the air and seeing where he is in any given race and looking at all the possibilities that are around, even if there's something that hasn't been talked about. And I don't think it was talked about. Judging by the radio messages to Lewis Hamilton during the race, once he'd come in for his after his second stop and he's on his final set of hard tyres, all the talk then was the gap to the car in front and how quickly he could run on those tyres, and obviously there was less load going through the tyres now, so he could push them harder into the entries of corners, and it was all just along the lines of, yep, everything's going to be fine. And then suddenly we get Lewis saying, what's the gap to George? Am I on track to win this race? And all of a sudden I think, you know, everybody realised it was going to be very, very difficult. Difficult moment for Mercedes, you would imagine. In a way, a good moment because you always want them on different strategies. There's going to be a drama, but a difficult moment because Lewis, of course, was entitled to feel, well, why wasn't I given this option of the one-stop strategy? I thought it was quite interesting. 2 laps to go, 3 laps to go, and they said just give one another a lot of space. They said to Lewis. I think they should have been giving that message to George actually, but they gave that message to Lewis, and I wonder whether that changed things a little bit. I mean, that's unnecessary to say that to Lewis Hamilton, I think, because he's not the sort of driver that ever really does anything incredibly stupid, particularly with a teammate. Famous last words. We have seen it, of course, but at that stage of the race, I don't think Lewis needed to be told that. And maybe
in your opinion,
that affected his aggression a little bit, maybe, but not much he could do. I mean, if even in DRS, he couldn't pass George at the end of the straight. So that was that. So then the only thing was to maybe do something Sector 2, maybe push him into a mistake or something going into Stabilo. And as I say, George went green. He went personal best Sector 2 on his last lap. And that was it in the race. Except that Lewis did win it in the end. Wow. What a weird day. George with that strategy. Difficult to overtake, difficult to follow other cars.
I still didn't win.
McLaren's challenge sort of fell away. George Russell, the hero of the day. And then suddenly he's disqualified. Wow, what a day. Belgian Grand Prix, living up. I did that little video thing after the qualifying video yesterday, just showing what happened in 1964, when 3 drivers all ran out of fuel or had problems on the last lap, and Jim Clark won the race, didn't even know he'd won it. And I said, you know, these things often happen at Spa, and look what has happened at Spa. Not only was George Russell the surprise on-the-road winner, but then he wasn't the winner anyway after about 2 hours after the race.
Yeah, that's
so
lame.
Very, very, very strange race as everybody goes off now to the August break. And they'll be back for the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort, Max Verstappen's home race. Can't wait for that. A big thanks to Jetcraft, to OEM Exclusive,
Can you wait for that?
to Track Ninja for the support of this channel. Big thanks to you, the viewer. Have a great August. See you soon.
Fuck, come on, stripy green. We have a stripy green. Stripy green cyan. That we also have. Sounds like light. Lime pink. We don't have lime pink. Nice. Let's see. Was it free? Or was it just 2?
The noise, the flags.
Okay, go away. Let's see. Oh no. I believe 2. Maybe 3. Let's say 3. I need to look this afterwards. 3. Then we have let's see, 9, 15. Oh, 3. 18, 20, 22, 24. Minus 24. 20, 25. Minus 24. Yeah, that is that. And in 4 minutes, House of the Dragon Season 7 will come out. No, Season 2, Episode 7. And yeah, so I mean, stuff happened in the race, and I would say, man, McLaren are losing so many points to this. I mean, you will think with their car they will be winning more, getting more points. I mean, getting closer to the... Oh shit, they're so close. But they should already get past them with the points they could have got. But now they giving it away to Mercedes. It's so weird. But yeah, it was summer break. Then we will see who will win the Formula 3 and how much Hadja will extend his lead, maybe in the Formula 2, and maybe what Bortoletto can do. Then we see, will Perez still be in Red Bull? I would say yes, until they say they fix the car and Max Verstappen start winning again. And if Perez still not good, then they will probably get rid of him. But if he start doing good, they will keep him at least when the next season start and he's doing bad again. But yeah, so until more news or stuff